Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back to Technology Envoy. Today we have what we call William Tompkins number two. We did William Tompkins' resume, which is William Tompkins number one, but now we're actually going to go through all of the books completely. So today I'm honored to be with Lacey here today, and she's going to do some reading for us from the first book called Selected by Extraterrestrials. So, thank you, Lacey, for being here.
Yeah, and it's an honor to be here and be able to read this and yeah, we'll jump
Yeah,
into it, really.
yeah. Well, before we jump into it, let's talk a little bit about Frank Chili because I just want everybody to understand who Frank is. And Frank is the executive producer of the Jeff Rent's radio show. And he knew William Tompkins personally. And in fact, he invited him on the show, I think, over 20 times. I think there's 54 hours or something of Tompkins on there. And I've had contact with Frank before. And I understand that you had a phone call with him last night, Lindsay. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I texted Frank. Frank's been texting me, a little, he'll text me like here and there.
Yeah,
And I texted him because we know that William Tompkins is still alive, and we know
yeah,
that he texted Frank after his funeral.
yeah. 2 days after his funeral, there were two texts from Tompkins. Yep,
Yes.
yeah,
And so we know that he took age regression technologies. And so I was texting Frank, I know that this happened. I know that he contacted you. I want to know a little bit more about age regression and the technologies. And I don't know, it's just kind of poking at him. And he full blown
yeah.
called me and he clarified that yes, William Tompkins was taking age regression technologies, and there are
Wow.
multiple avenues that you can go with it. Like there are the med beds that you can get into and do it like that, but there are age regression technologies in tablet form. And
Wow.
so
Yeah.
he was focusing on tablet form age regression technologies and gave me the company Genentech. Now, the only thing about Genentech that I do not know is I do not know whether William Tompkins took this specific tablet or not.
Right. Yeah.
All I know is that he did take age regression, and Frank gave me um this company with the link to this company
Hmm.
that talks about age regression, and they plan on going public with it soon.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
that's absolutely amazing. And again, thank you, Frank Chili, for all the great information and the fact that see, Frank probably knew Tompkins the best, I think. Maybe Dr. Sala as well. Frank and Dr. Sala know each other. And then Dr. Robert Wood. Dr. Robert Wood was actually the main editor of all Tompkins books until he passed away a little while ago. And I had contact with Dr. Robert Wood a few times, including a couple phone calls that I had with him as well too. So I never did meet Tompkins, but I have had contact with five men who personally knew Tompkins. So we're going to dive into his amazing work
Oh,
and have Lacey read to us.
yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
one more thing. Frank also told
Hmm.
me about a vitamin called I believe it's pronounced Scragulus.
Yeah.
Stragulus. Stragulus.
Stragulans.
These will be put in the description as well. But
Cool.
with Stragulus is a vitamin that you can buy at your vitamin shop, and it helps just your overall. I think he said that he takes some in the morning and at night, and
Wow.
it's supposed to be good for your aging. And all the
Excellent.
aging processes are done. It's the telomere gene. It's
Yeah. So,
with your
yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the gene that this company is focused on, and this is how this these pills work essentially.
Yeah. And which is
Yeah.
also that vitamin is also good for strengthening that gene. I think it's probably a
Right.
vitamin. Not sure, but
Cool.
wanted to also put that out there in case somebody wanted to look into
That's
it.
that's amazing, amazing information. And yeah, and again, thank you, Frank Chili, for yeah, providing us with all of that. And it's so cool that you get to talk to him all the time too, right?
Yeah, I know. He's super nice and it is really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All, all right. Well, we're about to dive into Selected by Extraterrestrials, the first book. There is three books out now, but I do know that there is a fourth book in the making, and it will be the last book, sort of thing. So I think Frank Chili, Dr. Sala, and maybe Nick Redford, because he's one of the associate editors on this book itself, will probably be taking over for Dr. Robert Wood, of course, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So with further ado, I'll let
Yeah.
the lovely Lacey read to us.
Yeah. We're starting with the preface. Um, Bill Tompkins has been writing his autobiographies in his mind for many years, and this book is the first of several eras in his life, taking his story from childhood years to the late 1960s when he was hired by TRW. I first met Bill on November 24th, 2009, when he summarized his life for a couple of hours. One of the things that excited me was that he had worked at Douglas Aircraft Company from 1950 to 1963, and I had worked there the summers of 1949, 1950, 1953 through April of 1954, and then from January 1956 until retirement in 1993.
Wow.
He and I had not met each other during our 6 years of overlapping time because he was initially a draftsman working in ground support electronics, with whom I rarely had contact since I was involved in aerodynamic and thermodynamic issues. Nevertheless, we both worked for many of the same VPs, and I knew or had met nearly all of the people he referenced, especially the key persons he worked for in a think tank.
Mhm.
Elmer Wheaton and his German scientific advisor, Wolfgang B. Klemperer. His story of the work he did exactly coincides with what I remember, although I was not aware that there was a think tank at that time at that location. For example, we both worked on the Thor missile for the Air Force, the Nike Zeus for the Army, and Saturn program for NASA. He showed me some of the pages of drafts on his autobiography, and it was clear to me that Bill, while being quite articulate in his mind and speech, never obtained the skill of hearing words and knowing how to spell them. He asked me if I would help him get the first one
Wow.
of his autobiographies published, offering me course of of course a portion of any profit. Motivated more by his story than the potential money, I became his friend as he told me more and more near incredible things about what he did in work related to UFOs, alien technology, sexy Nordic secretaries,
Mhm.
naval spacecraft carriers, what Armstrong saw on the moon, and other secret projects. For those of you who try to follow the timeline of the book with precision, you may find a few anachronisms. For example, reference to the Apollo program before it was officially begun. Probably the author is remembering the Saturn contract that was later used to launch Apollo. Most of Bill Tompkins' reports comes from his memory, and very few of us can remember things 40 or so years ago except in reference to other things. We are reading the thoughts and memories of a man looking back more than 60 years and who is offering insights and recollections here and there, but which are sometimes out of chronological order because of the passage of time.
Mhm.
He is eager to get started on his next volume on what he did after he left Douglas, but that will come later. Now you are able to read about amazing details of his professional career, interspersed with rather personal aspects of his interaction with those involved. I have been accused of never having met a conspiracy I didn't like. Bill's life story skirts the edge of believability, but in this case, I have total confidence he is he is honestly telling the story as best remembers it. Fortunately, Bill had kept some copies of some photos and documents that support this theory or this story and are included as figures as they apply. They do need they do indeed enhance the credibility of this man's amazing life so far. Robert M. Wood, PhD, Cornell University.
Yeah, and the reason why I chuckled there, Lacey, was because William Tompkins can't spell, and you know that I can't spell either. So that's why I had a little chuckle there. Very cool. Thank you. Let's keep going. This
Yeah.
is amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and I feel like yeah, I actually feel like it is a thing for like people who are very genius, to say the least. Like genius people have a hard time, I feel like, with that kind of stuff because
Oh,
the brains are
interesting.
so like engaged in these really complex, really intricate kinds of processes that I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
like things that are kind of like everyday things become very like, I don't know, ancillary or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do actually know what you mean because I think that's the same thing. Although it's just yeah, I just can't spell.
Well, I'm saying it's a pattern for geniuses to not be able to spell.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Wow, that's an
Yeah.
amazing comment. Holy cow, Lacey. Amazing. All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's dive into it more. This is
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you.
The prologue. We must prepare ourselves for the most earth-shattering news the world has ever known. Carl Sagan, 7/16/02.
Wow.
I did not know that I know things that you don't know. Wait, I sorry. I did not know that I know things that you do not know. At the
Wow.
outset, it's important I note that while this book is my autobiography, it does not tell my entire life's history. It only addresses my personal work in and my knowledge of the field of aerospace technology from 1950 to 1969. It
Mm.
was a microscopic period of space-time, but one in which a massive change in man's understanding of his place in the universe occurred. The subject matter contained in this volume is so important that it cannot be covered in just one book alone. The story of the rest of my fantastic life and corresponding adventures will be included in subsequent volumes.
Mm.
My dad was good with a camera. He'd taken a lot of photos for his high school yearbook, and he became an excellent photographer. While he was developing movie film at Universal Pictures in Hollywood, California, he conceived a major breakthrough for processing film. It was so brilliant that nearly every movie director in Hollywood insisted that he process all of their movies. By 1920, the demand for hundreds of movies to be distributed worldwide became so great that Dad built the Standard Film Laboratories situated on Hollywood Boulevard. This massive production laboratory employed hundreds of technicians as well as language interpreters to convert English language versions. These foreign language versions were distributed worldwide to more than 140 countries. Dad remained at the helm of Standard Film Laboratories until his company underwent a financial takeover and he was no longer involved. With no money coming in to support what had previously been a lavish lifestyle for our family, my father, my mother, brother, and I moved in with my aunt and uncle. Their large two-story home was shared with their three daughters. My uncle, Dr. Harding, was the head surgeon of the Santa Monica Hospital at the time. He and my three cousins made many trips to the pyramids in Egypt.
Mm.
Nearby is a photo of my uncle on one of those trips. Surprisingly, there appears to be a UFO in the background of the photo. which was
Ooh.
not noticed by them at the time. Their goal in Egypt was to interpret the hieroglyphics. So
Hmm.
yeah, there's that UFO right there. I
De-
didn't even notice that either until you
definitely.
said something.
Wow.
Wow,
Amazing.
that is amazing. Uncle Harding arranged with historical organizations there to have hundreds of documents, photographs, and artifacts shipped to his home. All five of my uncle's family members were conceived that deciphering the hieroglyphics would result in identifying the true builders of the pyramids, and that they were related to people from the stars, specifically in the Orion Nebula.
Hmm.
Living in their large home, surrounded by every type of Egyptian antique except mummies, was an adventure and an education. They even had handheld three-dimensional wooden photo viewers that we used to decipher the symbols. My three cousins were fascinated with what the young Egyptian girls wore to entice their older male friends. Sometimes my cousins made skimpy Egyptian princess outfits. They would run around the house and out into their large backyard with jeweled necklaces flying. The cousins had copied them from photos of the teenage Egyptian royalty on the walls in the pyramids. They were
Wow.
acting out what must have been a very elegant Egyptian lifestyle in their elaborate temples. Uncle Harding's home was only a few blocks from the high rise hotel and beach club located below the Santa Monica uh, Palisades on the beach. Our mothers and all five of us children spent most of the summers at the club, where we experienced some of the finest weather on the planet. Instead of
Mm.
wearing their bathing suits, our cousins frequently wore different clothing, similar to that which the young Egyptians were thought to wear around their enormous pools, palaces, and gardens. My head, a sponge, I became fascinated. 2 years later, in our small Hollywood apartment, I decided to build a 50 naval ship model, or I decided to build 50 naval ship models, all on a same scale.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's impeccable. On
Hmm.
weekends, my father would drive me and my brother to the naval docks in Long Beach. Along with other visitors, we were taken out to sea in large powered naval lifeboats. We climbed on board the fleet's battleships, cruisers, and the occasional aircraft carrier, anchored in Long Beach Harbor. Cameras were prohibited back then. I looked at the
Wow.
new radars installed on all the capital ships and could see that they contained a lot of secret equipment. At that time, Navy sensors ensured that data concerning classified onboard systems never reached the media. I mentally recorded images of all the new classified equipment. On the drive home, I drew rough perspective sketches, and when we got home, I turned them into surprisingly accurate illustrations. I made detailed drawings from the sketches of the ships and their weapons, including all the classified radar arrays and anti-aircraft guns. I
Hmm.
even located the aircraft carrier's arrestor gear on the
Aft.
aft flight deck.
Yep.
Sorry, that was not registering with me for some. I then
Doing
built
great.
all the class. Oh, what?
No, you're doing great. You're doing
Oh,
great.
thanks.
Yeah.
I then built all of the classified equipment to scale and installed it on my models, which were subsequently put on display by my father in the windows of local department stores. Seeing them, the Los Angeles Times interviewed me, saying I had a photographic memory. They took photos and published the first of hundreds of articles published worldwide over the next 50 years. My collection of model ships was appraised by the Los Angeles County Museum as one of the finest collections in the country. In 1942, naval intelligence became aware of the ships on display in the windows of the Broadway department store, located on Hollywood Boulevard, and investigated my father as if he were a spy. Came to our small apartment and found all my sketches and drawings piled nearly to the ceiling of the bedroom that I shared with my older brother. Instead of being upset,
Wow.
they initiated a program, or more correctly, a campaign, to enlist me in the Navy. Over the years, the collection would become 309 ships, collectively valued at possibly $2 million.
Wow.
I think that is really
That's wild.
there too.
Mm-hmm. Holy.
Phenomenal. They knew. They just knew that he
309.
had to be in the Navy after that.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. He was brilliant. They knew it.
Years later, while I was visiting the Mount Wilson 100-inch telescope near Los Angeles, a realization hit me. Astronomers had established that the Milky Way galaxy contains millions of other stars beyond our own sun. I felt that they possibly had solar systems with planets like our own, which was contrary to what astronomers believed at the time. I was convinced that there must be billions of other stars and galaxies forming even as we watched, most supporting life that was far more advanced than ours. I was convinced that some type of oh, alien intelligence was not only observing our planet, but also influencing it. For some reason, I never accepted that these aliens were simply watching us. It seemed to me that for thousands of years, they have been hostile, interfering a interfering a threat to our way of life. Ever since I was that little boy making secret sketches, I have had a uh, preoccupation with our galactic environment.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have to say that not all extraterrestrials are hostile or interfering,
Yeah. Yeah,
especially
exactly.
now.
Especially now. Yep. Absolutely right there, Lacey. Definitely.
On February 25th, 1942, 3 months after the attacks on Pearl Harbor, a very strange thing happened. By this time, my family had moved to Long Beach. We were now living in a high second floor apartment that was converted from a large home. It was only 4 blocks from the ocean. At about 8 p.m. on the night in question, my father called my brother and me to our deck, which faced the bay. There was a strange, intense light just above the horizon, a narrow beam pointing towards the ocean. The little beam turned horizontally, right into our eyes, and hit the back of the wall of our apartment and the surrounding trees. It was blinding. Suddenly and bafflingly, the light went out. Whatever it was had gone. There was nothing we could do but stand there amazed. Finally, we retired to our beds. Just after midnight, the air raid sirens and anti-aircraft guns of the coastal artillery woke everybody up. We ran out onto the street and saw a large round craft, about 7,000 feet up, floating in the air above us. It slowed to a stop right overhead and remained stationary. It was lit up by 8 searchlights, while anti-aircraft shells burst all around and against it. Most of the shells exploded on the bottom of the craft. We just couldn't believe the thing hadn't exploded or been shot down. 3, then 5 other ships appeared near it. Some of the searchlights, as well as the anti-aircraft teams, focused on each one as they passed the first object. Eventually, the first craft slowly departed as well. Later on, about 12 other craft passed by at higher altitudes and were in turn fired upon. It was like a spell. Why weren't the hundreds of us watching this event concerned or frightened? I was not scared. There was no panic. No one was screaming. There were no heart attacks. And no one was going crazy. Other vehicles continued to pass over us for nearly 5 hours. Our coastal artillery anti-aircraft crews attempted to shoot down these strange flying machines. By 3:30 a.m., the main show was over. Unconcerned, we went back to bed, although several neighbors told us the air raid continued and the alarm lasted until 5 a.m. The next morning, the newspapers reported that foreign aircraft had been spotted in the airspace between Santa Monica and Long Beach. They failed to mention that half of Southern California watched the event nearly all night. This so-called Los Angeles air raid became the first major incident in a long string of events connected to the UFO phenomenon in recent history. And it was the start of many encounters affecting my entire 57 years of aerospace engineering.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, the public may not have accepted the reality of what we just had witnessed. Another world had penetrated into our lives. I realized that there had to be a massive interplanetary mothership or motherships orbiting our planet and from somewhere out in the galaxy. The mothership had dispatched hundreds of landing type platform vehicles to the Earth. The nature of their mission was totally unknown. World War II was raging. We had our hands full with the Nazis, and now this? Furthermore, there were several people in the Navy Department, Army Air Corps, and an aircraft company whose entire lives were impacted. They were Admiral Roscoe H. Hellencoetter, right?
Helen Coder. Yep. Yep.
Hellencoetter,
Mm-hmm.
Secretary of the Navy James V. Forrestal,
Mm-hmm.
Army Air Corps General Nathan F. Twining, and General Curtis Lee May, Edward Bowles of MIT, Dr. Vannevar Bush,
Mm-hmm.
and Donald Douglas Sr., to name a few. As I tell this story, these other stories will be told as well. Another person who saw the massive vehicles over Long Beach in 1942 was a Navy intelligence officer, Lieutenant J.G. Perry Wood. Lieutenant Wood, understanding the talents that went into creating my ship models, put together a mission package for me and got me in the Navy, as shown here, which was this picture.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He arranged for me to get a job with Vultee Aircraft while I was still awaiting my security clearance. After being sworn in and having completed boot camp in San Diego, I was assigned to a position in naval intelligence. I was working on advanced technology projects, having replaced a naval commander at the North Island Naval Air Station, San Diego, California. My mission tasks and objectives were to act as a disseminator of aircraft research and information. While only a third-class seaman, I was destined to be upgraded rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
My mission was under the direction of the chief engineer, a captain to whom I was to report, and Admiral Rico Botta, who was in naval intelligence. I was to compile and maintain a continuous survey of A, experimental research laboratory activities, B, other governmental agencies, and C, educational scientific institutions, manufacturers, and research engineers. Upon my own initiative, or at the request of any bureau or office of the Naval Air Forces. I undertook studies of specific instrumentalities and techniques for the purpose of outlining research projects. I was also assigned to the Naval Management Program, enrolled in flight school, sorry. Pretty different thing right there.
Yep.
Flight school. And carried out existing and future flight missions for which I received flight pay. I flew in almost every new aircraft in the Navy inventory, and sometimes as the pilot. Among other assignments, I flew admirals out to such places as Douglas Aircraft, Santa Monica, Long Beach, and China Lake, situated in the Mojave Desert.
Mojave.
Mojave Desert.
Yep.
For 4 years, from 1942 to 1947, I had access to highly classified programs and was involved in some of the most unprecedented advanced scientific programs on the planet.
That's a big statement, isn't it?
That is a huge statement.
And also what he was talking about before, that's known as the Battle of Los Angeles. What he saw there, basically. Yeah, and it was definitely a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
If anybody's spilling the real beans, it's William Tompkins in his books.
absolutely. And that's why we're going through them,
Yeah.
because the truth lies within these books, right? Yeah, amazing, amazing story. And yeah, truly, he changed the whole world. He
Yep.
literally did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The war ended, but it was not until 1946 that I was honorably discharged. My dad had insisted I resign so that I could go work for him, selling real silk hosiery door to door. I hated it.
No
After
doubt.
that, yeah, seriously.
He's a
After that,
genius.
yeah. After that, I sold roofing materials for him. I hated that too. I mean, at that point, he just knew exactly what he came here to do.
Yeah, yeah, you got
I
that right. Yep, that's funny.
ultimately, I went to work at Northrop. My work with scale models had demonstrated that I would be good at making models to be tested in the wind tunnel. I was convinced this was where my future lay. I got on board in the wind tunnel department. I was also given a job designing airplanes without wings, a job that required a security clearance. Airplanes without wings.
Yeah, exactly. And he will get to that, but that's a huge statement again.
Huge.
Um, how do they fly if they don't have wings? And you're about to find out as we dive into this book,
Yeah,
definitely.
I might have already spoiled it.
It's all good.
um, I then quit Northrop and went to work at the cybernetics lab at North American, which was the old Vultee plant. While there, it turns out I saw circuit board prototypes stated to be made from some ET materials.
Wow.
In 1949, my brother and I got a job at Lockheed Aircraft Company in Burbank. When I was working at Lockheed, I became aware of a technical advancement into aerospace activities, which was going on at the massive Douglas Aircraft Company in Santa Monica. Again, my models opened doors for me. They had gotten me into the wind tunnel model shop at Northrop, and now at Douglas, the senior vice president was aware of my ship collections. In fact, he paid me to build for him a model of Donald Douglas's sailboat, the Endymion,
Hmm.
as a
So,
birthday gift. As no specifications or drawings were available, I had to document the large boat with sketches before building it. The VP had acquired a copy of my resume and checked my naval background. Even before the model was completed, he was impressed, and as a result, in 1951, he transferred me into engineering as a draftsman.
hmm,
Because of my former security clearance with the Navy, the electronics section chief, my boss, transferred me into the highly classified advanced design section, a move that changed my life.
wow.
The events date back to 1945 and a top secret report to the Secretary of War. Commanding General of the Army Air Forces, H. Hap Arnold, wrote, "During these years of war, our military has made unprecedented use of scientific and industrial resources. We must continue to have teamwork amongst the military, industry, and the universities. Scientific planning must be years in advance of the actual research and development."
Hmm.
In this report, Arnold did not, however, reveal his greatest concern, that some type of alien beings were here and that, technically speaking, might be millions of years ahead of us.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Under the direction of James Forrestal, who was the Secretary of the Navy on October 1st, 1945, several high-ranking big shots were brought on board, including General Hap Arnold, Edward Bowles of MIT, and a consultant to the Secretary of War, Donald Douglas, the president of Douglas Aircraft Company, Arthur Raymond, the chief engineer at Douglas, and Frank Kalbaum, right? Kalbaum?
Yeah, I think so. Yep, colon.
Who was Arthur Raymond's assistant. They met in secret at the Army Air Corps headquarters, Hamilton Field, California, to set up Project RAND, a way above top secret scientific think tank. It was created in December 1945 as a special contract to Douglas Aircraft Company at the Santa Monica Municipal Airport. Inside a highly classified, walled-off area in the Douglas Engineering Department, Project RAND studied the implications of threatening alien agendas. Meanwhile, Frank Kalbaum, under the direction of Arthur Raymond and Donald Douglas, had been secretly investigating the strange flight of vehicles over Santa Monica and Los Angeles since 1942. Kalbaum would become one of the principal figures leading RAND. In that same month of 1945, the new office of the Deputy Chief of Air Staff for Research and Development, to which Project RAND reported, was officially established, with Major General Curtis Lee May as its first appointee. Then, on March 2nd, 1946, a letter of contract was executed, which put Project RAND under the direction of Douglas's assistant chief engineer, Frank Kalbaum. The Douglas think tank was born. RAND had two missions: A, to research the potential design, performance, and possible use of man-made satellites, and B, to function as a highly classified scientific research program. The latter included literally thousands of problems in various fields, many related to addressing the technological threats posed by the aliens, considered to be thousands of years more advanced than our own technologies. By early 1948, Project RAND had grown to approximately 200 staff members, with expertise in a wide range of fields. The arrangement with Douglas Manufacturing Management, however, proved to be a major problem. A conflict of interest was boiling, and a separation was imminent. It wasn't long before the Chief of Staff of the newly created United States Air Force wrote a letter to Donald Douglas. It was a letter that approved the evolution of RAND into a nonprofit RAND corporation, independent of Douglas, and that's what it became. The divorce was problematic. Many PhDs wanted to stay with advanced design at Douglas. Elements of the big picture were literally thrown back and forth. Others wanted to walk both sides of the line and not be involved in the big picture. Others wanted to proceed only in their fields. But the think tank was split into two. RAND leased a building in downtown Santa Monica and called it the RAND Building. Following the divorce on June 24th, 1947, it was still testing electrostatic field propulsion techniques in the science laboratory at Northrop Aircraft in Hawthorne, and still trying to make vehicles fly with almost no wings. It was also on that date that Kenneth Arnold, a private pilot, encountered a tight formation of 9 disc-shaped aircraft. They were cutting across his flight path at high speed over the Cascade Mountains in the Washington state area. Although this was not the first known sighting of such objects, it was certainly one of the first to gain widespread attention. Hundreds of reports of similar objects quickly followed. Many of these came from highly credible military and civilian sources. the military tried to ascertain the nature and purpose of these objects, primarily in the interest of national defense. They were, however, unsuccessful in their attempts to utilize naval aircraft to pursue reported disks in flight. At times, public reaction bordered on near hysteria. According to the so-called Majestic 12, Eisenhower briefing document, EBD, mailed anonymously to UFO researcher Jamie or James
Yeah, Jamie, I think.
Shandera in December 1984. Little was learned about these objects until a local rancher reported that one had crashed in a remote region of New Mexico on July 5th, 1947. The site, 75 miles northwest of the Roswell Army Airfield, became the staging ground for a secret operation meant to ensure recovery of the wreckage. During the course of this operation, aerial reconnaissance discovered that 4 small humanoid beings had apparently ejected from the craft at some point before it exploded, fallen to Earth roughly 2 miles east of the wreckage site, reported the author of the EBD. All 4 were reportedly dead. A determination was made that the vehicle was a short-range
Reconnaissance.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Craft, which implied it came from a larger mothership.
Mm-hmm.
Numerous examples of what appeared to be a form of writing were found in the wreckage. Efforts to decipher these had remained largely unsuccessful, stated the EBD. Indeed, they were unsuccessful as the efforts of my uncle, my cousins, and me to decipher those hieroglyphics in Egypt back in the 1930s. Equally unsuccessful, noted the authors of the Majestic 12 documents, were the efforts to determine the method of propulsion and the nature or method of transmission of the power source involved. This is not surprising when one takes into consideration the complete absence of identifiable wings, propellers, jets, and total lack of metallic wiring. Nor were there any vacuum tubes or recognizable electronic components present whatsoever. Although these creatures were humanoid, noted Majestic 12, the apparent biological processes responsible for their evolution were entirely different from our own. So the term extraterrestrial biological entities, or EBEs, was adopted. It is virtually certain that these craft do not originate in any country on Earth. Dr. Menzel, allegedly of MJ12, summed this up nicely, stating, "We are dealing with beings from another solar system entirely."
Wow.
Wow.
Another statement. Holy cow, right?
Yeah. Operation Majestic 12 was created on September 24th, 1947. Upon the recommendation of Secretary of Defense James S. Forrestal, formerly Secretary of the Navy, Dr. Vannevar Bush, and Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, who headed up the group. It is a top-secret, majestic eyes-only research and development intelligence operation responsible directly and only to the President of the United States.
Wow.
In turn, both the Deputy Chief of Aircraft for Research and Development and the Project RAND group reported only to Majestic 12 at the time. As I said before, early in 1950, I came on board at Douglas, Santa Monica. Because of my Navy intelligence background, they dropped me into this tank, which was still steaming from the divorce with a group of their peers. Those of us that were newly hired were totally unaware of the separation or the tension that still haunted the PhDs. Nobody told us anything. At times, some of my associates in the tank felt that I approached the advanced space programs as if I were from a different sector of the galaxy. I agree
Wow.
because to me, this planet doesn't have a good reputation. Um,
True.
it is true. And this statement, it's an extremely barbaric place to live. That is accurate.
Wow. Yeah.
Granted, some of the black hat aliens with what we would perceive as an evil agenda, are certainly responsible for instigating the hatred between our early tribes before 1200 BC and in the years that followed. I have always been convinced that there must be civilizations out there that are not only far more advanced than ours, but also more civilized.
Hmm.
So now I am driven to get my ideas out to everyone reading this book. My intention is to present compelling evidence of multiple alien cultures influencing our aerospace development. Do you, reader, have any concept of the tremendous thrust of the secret work we were involved in? Life on this little planet will never be the same. So read on, see what really happened, and get involved. It's difficult to
Oh,
understand
cool.
how complicated the idea of going to the moon was to us way back in 1950. I'm not preaching and I don't want to teach a class. This book is structured as a discussion of our first penetration into the universe. For the first time in the history of this little blue marble, man will actually realize his greatest dream, that of leaving his home and traveling to the stars. We are privileged to be living during this time in history because it's happening right now. The Apollo moon missions were just the foundation for the deep space exploratory interstellar missions planned by the Douglas think tank and the Navy. So,
Wow.
how did we accomplish this enormous task of going to the moon, designing the Apollo vehicle and launch center, and manufacturing all of the equipment in the thousands of aerospace facilities located throughout the United States? It was conceived not by NASA, but at the old Douglas Missile and Space Systems divisions in Santa Monica, California. Not only that, it was conceived 4 years before NASA even existed by advanced
Wow.
design and analysts in a think tank who didn't just do what they were assigned to do, but who visualized in their minds every step necessary for missions to the moon, the planets in our solar system, and 12 of our closest stars.
Wow.
That's crazy.
12 stars.
12 stars.
Back in the 50s, they're doing this.
Yep.
Amazing.
I was one of those conceptual thinkers. As engineering section chief, I conceived dozens of millions and or I conceived dozens of missions and spaceships designed for exploratory operations to the planets that orbit our nearest stars. I designed a station to be built on Mars, massive NOVA vehicles, and equatorial launching facilities. I also designed multiple 2,000 man military bases for our moon and a 600 man naval station for all of the habitable planets and their moons.
Wow.
Wow. I
Oh,
devised the checkout and launch and I devised the checkout and launch test systems for the Apollo Moon Saturn V or
um,
that's Roman numerals.
yeah, S4V-B. That's the middle part of the Saturn V rocket. He was the section engineering chief of. Yep.
And reassembly with the command control moon vehicle. A near complete redesign of the major facilities operations for the entire launch control center at Cape Canaveral, Florida. I documented what I did, made sketches, and presented them to my staff, who were the most competent designers on the entire moon program. The results were astounding. I presented them in turn to the NASA directors, who then completely changed their unsuccessful method of development, resulting in 6 successful missions to our closest planetary neighbor. Amazing.
Yeah. Tompkins basically saved the Apollo program. And
Yes.
we'll go into that a little bit more into the book here, but that's basically what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing amazing. Thank you, Lacey.
Yeah, thank you. This is really amazing to read.
Yeah, totally.
Visualize a hidden technical world where a block-long, 5-story building full of 6-foot-high cabinets of electronic computers, power supplies, old-fashioned printed circuit boards, and wire patch panels could just barely accomplish the mission your cell phone has probably just completed. Most of you were never exposed to the massive size of the computers we designed, built, and operated just to get the 4-stage 365-foot Apollo Saturn vehicle checked out and launched to the moon. Today, we are amidst a technical explosion. Man has evolved on this planet for a span of approximately 30,000 years, according to carbon-dated skeletons. In terms of development, nothing of a technical nature occurred until relatively recently. The first airplane flown by the Wright brothers was built in the early 1900s. It was only 60 years later that man designed a massive rocket, powered it to the moon, landed there, gathered rocks, and returned safely to Earth, while every thinking person on our planet watched it happen on television. That is only a 60-year time frame. That's less than a lifetime. In 1954, during our studies of pre-Nova and pre-Apollo Saturn deep space starships, we in the Advanced Design think tank collectively established prerequisites for all of our naval spaceship studies. The 300 years of naval experience and the operating missions at sea, sometimes without replenishment, became a prerequisite for all military star missions. Naval vessels are at sea for a long time, which gives them a great deal of expertise when it comes to undertaking long missions. On the other hand, Air Force bomber crews have breakfast with their families in the morning, take off for their missions halfway around the planet, drop their bombs, turn around, fly back home, and have a glass of wine with their wives in the evening. President John F. Kennedy was given permission to leave our planet. I say given permission, but by whom? Who gave Kennedy this wild, stupid idea to go up to the moon? Certainly, Congress didn't. They had pork barrel projects back in their home states, all of which needed those hundreds of millions of dollars. And why would Soviet generals and Navy admirals give up all their new toys just to go off half-cocked on some ridiculous moon thing, regardless of social needs in the early 1960s? Someone gave them permission, and it resulted in the most complicated technical task ever attempted in the history of man. The moon race was on.
Wow.
So why was NASA created in 1958? Publicly, it was created to provide a non-military government agency to organize and build a rocket ship that would take man to the moon. Oh, yes, the evil empire was still trying to get there first, but we in the USA were going there on a peaceful exploratory venture. Well, that's not exactly the whole truth either. Back in 1952, some unbelievable space studies came out of the Douglas think tank. They revealed that not only were certain US governmental heads aware of the alien involvement in human affairs, but that the old Soviet Union was aware of the situation too. With possible alien assistance, the Soviets were bent on getting to the moon first, in order to establish missile bases there and control the entire planet. Oh yes, that was a copy of Hitler's plan. What we know is dwarfed by all we have to learn. Never in the history of man's time on this planet has there ever been a project conceived, designed, and successfully completed like the United States Apollo Moon program. It remains by far the most complicated technical effort ever attempted by man, and our first major penetration into the universe. Man has made some progress in exploring our local space. Still, we have worlds that await us in our own galaxy, Andromeda, our closest galactic neighbor, and the rest of the universe. Our challenge is to extend our presence across the vastness of deep space, seek answers from other solar systems with potentially intelligent life, and establish commerce with them. So why all of a sudden in a microsecond of galactic time did we leave the planet? Who wanted us out there? End of Prologue 2013.
Mhm. Thank you, Lacey. And then we decided to put the back of the book
Mm-hmm.
on there,
Yeah.
and maybe you can read that to us as well, because it kind
Yeah.
of sums up everything beautifully.
Yeah.
Mhm.
William Mills Tompkins has led a remarkable life so far, and this autobiographical holy cow, words. Autobiographical book tells how he believes he was selected by Nordic extraterrestrials in 1942. Assigned by the Navy to intelligence because of his remarkable memory skills, Bill was exposed immediately to the Navy's knowledge of Hitler's UFO program. After the war, he began working in a think tank at Douglas Aircraft Company for aerospace executive Elmer Wheaton, and with naval intelligence to offer creative suggestions and designs for huge naval spacecraft carriers. The authenticity of part of the story is corroborated by editor Wood, who was employed at the same facility at the same time and knew some of the same company leaders.
Yeah.
The cute Nordic secretaries Bill was given may have used their psychic powers to keep NASA on the right track for an effective Apollo program and to begin the covert naval exploration of the galaxy.
Wow.
Testimonial by author. Early in 2001, I called on Admiral Hugh Webster, Navy League Corporate Director, Washington, D.C., in San Diego, California. We had a 5-hour meeting on my ongoing book writing concerning the extraterrestrial threats to our planet. After
Mhm.
Admiral Webster read portions of my document and backup technical documentation, I asked Hugh, how much of this can I include in a published book? He said, Bill, tell it all. This is most important to our country. Don't leave anything out.
Wow. And it says there that the main editor is Dr. Robert Wood,
Mhm.
and the associate editor is Nick Redfern.
Mhm.
And in the other books, like volume 2 and 3, Dr. Sala is also listed as an associate editor as well. Wow, Lacey, thank you. And
Yeah.
this is the first time that you read this. So what do you think? You have any comments? Wow,
Well,
right?
I've already heard a lot about probably a lot more than what the general public knows as well. So
Hmm.
all of this is really just kind of clarifying things for me, but I think his story is just phenomenal and he's such a big part of all of this. And
Yes.
I feel, yes, this is talking about a lot of aerospace industry kind of things, but what we don't realize is what the technologies that are being worked on by the aerospace industries,
Hmm.
as well as the ET materials that are coming in, are dire for our evolution, and we are at a point where we are forced to evolve. Period. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
understanding what truly happened to what truly happened to these people in these think tanks, because this is a real man. This is a
Yep.
he's just like us, you know?
Yep.
And to understand what they went through and the technologies that they worked with and the kind of um the fact that Hugh said, Bill, tell it all. Don't leave
Yep.
anything out is phenomenal because all of these think tanks and companies are putting everybody under a security clearance where they aren't able to really talk about these technologies. So this is a very,
Correct.
very important, not just a book, but a whole series
Yeah.
of his biography.
Yeah, probably a very, very important book. And for everyone to know now, this whole program that William Tompkins created, essentially designed, is called Solar Warden. And Solar Warden was ran by the Navy up until not too long ago when Donald Trump started Space Force. And when Trump started Space Force, then the Solar Warden program was literally handed over to Space Force. So that's who encompasses it now. But back in around the year 2000, there was a guy named Gary McKinley, I think his name is. I might have that wrong. But he was a hacker. He hacked into the NASA databases, but not the chemical rocket program, the Antigravity program or the Solar Warden program. And and he posted some of this stuff. He had found names of ships that were off planet and names of all the crew that were off planet as well.
Wow, that's
And,
crazy.
and yeah, and he got shut down. They caught him, and then they wanted. He was from England, I believe, and they wanted to bring him over to the States and put him in jail for a really, really long time. And finally, they backed off after about 10 years, I think, of harassing him essentially and saying that you can never reveal or post what you posted before. Otherwise, you're going to jail forever, basically. And that was them trying to cover up the Solar Warden program. But it took William Tompkins himself, who actually conceived and designed it, to come out and tell us the truth about everything, right?
Yeah,
And it's fantastic. Yeah,
yeah, it
yeah,
is
for
fantastic.
sure. So, and our plan here is to literally go through. Lacey is going to read
The
all the
entire
books to
book,
us
all of
in
them.
the all of them in the course of probably years. It's probably going to take us years because
Yep.
there's a lot to hear, but we're committed to doing that because I think this story is so important to the human race and to understand all of these technologies were real. And now with Trump coming back, we're going to see a lot of this stuff come to fruition. In fact, so it's just such an exciting time to be around.
Yeah. And we are
Definitely, yeah,
now like we are very encouraged to show everything in this book in these books.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, now's the time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been hidden for so long and we've won. That's another
we
thing.
have.
Like we have won. There is no anything that you hear about the deep state and something happening here or happening there. Don't worry about it. It's noise. We've
Correct.
won, we've won. And
We
this
did.
is something that I feel like everybody should read. This should at least, I would love for this to inspire somebody to get the book themselves and to read it on their own.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because reading is
Absolutely.
also very good for our brains as well.
Yep. Absolutely. I agree. Well, thank you, Lacey, and we'll be back again with
Yeah.
William Tompkins number 3, because this is actually, even though it's the beginning of the book, we did do William Tompkins number 1, which goes through his resume first, which shows up at the back part of the second book. In my opinion, to really understand who Tompkins was, I wanted to go through the resume for everyone and yourself too, right? Because you actually haven't read any of these books, have you?
Yeah,
Really?
no. And
Yeah.
going through the resume was really interesting as well and was really helpful. I caught a couple pieces in there
Yeah.
just read as well. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and this will all be on all of these shows will be on Technology Envoy, our YouTube channel. And thank you again, Lacey, for being here. Yeah,
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's an honor, really.
it's wonderful to have you here. Cool. All right. Well, maybe we'll shut off the recording for now, and till
Yeah,
next time. Bye,
bye.
everyone.